Vendor, behind the rope. Now. Major Pierce Marston pointed from 12 feet out across the inspection floor of the Aravex Defense Technologies headquarters in Reston, Virginia. 8:31 in the morning, a Monday in early June. The lobby of the dead manufacturer had been emptied over the weekend and refurnished as an auction floor. Stainless crates in rows against the glass wall, a rope line at 3 feet, a head table at the front with 2 microphones and a closed binder, new carpet, cardboard, 5 staff inside the rope, 1 woman at crate 17 with the lid up and a comms chassis turning under the overhead light. She did not look up. The chassis was a half-meter of brushed aluminum and recessed connectors, the kind of object that came out of its foam differently in the hands of a person who had read its assembly drawings. The woman finished a slow rotation under the light. She read the inside seam, the weld lot etched there, 3 numbers, 0.08 of an inch deep, and said the number out loud to no one in particular. Weld lot 4711. Then she lowered the chassis back into its foam with both hands, the way a person laid a sleeping child into a crib. She looked up at Marston. "I'm not a vendor." Marston smiled. It was the smile of a man whose authority had never been corrected by a woman in civilian clothes. He was 37, 6 years in the Army Acquisition Corps after 7 in the infantry, and the previous Tuesday, 2 general officers at a Pentagon working group had listened to him for 9 minutes without interrupting. He had filed the 9 minutes in the part of his memory that produced the smile. "Whose vendor are you, then?" "I'm not." 2 words. She did not elaborate. Behind Marston, 2 paces back, his aide had stopped walking. Captain Silas Whitcomb, 30, 3rd year in Acquisition Corps. 18 months as a junior officer in a program office he had not named to Marston since arriving. Whitcomb had seen the woman the moment he came through the door, and his face had gone very still. He said nothing. Marston turned 45 degrees and addressed the registration desk. "Sergeant," flagged the credential of the unaccompanied woman at crate 17. "Verify her sponsor before bidding opens at 1300 hours." Sergeant First Class Aide Linville was 41, 15 years in Army logistics, on temporary duty from a depot in North Carolina. She set down her coffee. She glanced at Whitcomb. She made the micro pause a senior NCO made when an order was procedural and reversible and visible at the same time, and she wrote the flag. "Flagged, sir." The woman at crate 17 saw the flag from 40 feet. She did not react. She had not reacted to any of it. She lifted a second chassis from the foam. Slightly different geometry. 2 extra recessed connectors near the heatsink, and began the same slow rotation under the overhead light. She did not lean over the crate. She squared her body to it. She did not check her phone. She kept both hands free. She named the next component identifier under her breath. Firmware build. 614A. Whitcomb, 20 feet back, caught a fragment of it and closed his eyes for 1 second. Marston had begun to lecture the floor. He was projecting his voice for his staff in the rope line, at the head table, at the registration desk, the kind of projection a man did when he had decided the floor was a stage, and he was the principal. He was naming the lot order. Radios first, optics second, modules last. We're disposing the radios at the top of the bid book because the radios carry the most market interest. Modules at the back. Optics in the middle. The auctioneer files the call card at 12:45. The woman at crate 17 lowered the second chassis into its foam. She closed the lid. She walked 4 paces to crate 18 and lifted that lid. She did not look up. She said 1 sentence at conversational volume. The disposition schedule has modules before optics. Page 3, line 41. 3 of Marston's staff looked at her. Brett, 24, in a borrowed blazer, lowered the clipboard he had been holding at his sternum. Marston laughed. One syllable, the kind of laugh that put air back into a room, and turned to face her. Page 3 of which document, ma'am? The one the auctioneer filed with the Federal Register on Tuesday. She still had not looked up. Whitcomb had gone the color of unpainted drywall. Marston filed the answer in the part of his memory that did not produce the smile and turned to Whitcomb. Escort the vendor off the inspection line, Captain. We'll find her a chair somewhere comfortable until her firm collects her. Whitcomb opened his mouth. He looked at the woman at crate 18. He looked at his boss. He did not speak. He nodded once. He started walking toward her. Every step the length of a man crossing a room he wished he were not in. 3 feet from the woman at crate 18, Whitcomb stopped. He did not take her elbow. He did not point at the door. He stood at the 4-foot distance of professional escort, notebook in his right hand at parade rest, and he said the only sentence the morning was going to allow him to deliver at conversational volume. Mom, I think there's been a misreading. The woman turned her head 1 degree toward him. The rest of her did not move. I think there has. Would you let me speak to him first? No. She said it without heat. Whitcomb absorbed the no. He nodded once. He stayed at her elbow at the 4-foot distance, and he began to look at the crates the way she was looking at them. The notebook opened in his right hand. The pen came out of his breast pocket. The woman moved on. Crate 18, lid closed. Crate 22, lid open. She lifted a black anodized module out of the foam. She looked at the serial number plate stamped on the housing. She looked at the bill of lading taped inside the crate lid. She looked back at the plate. She turned the module over and read a 4-digit revision code etched on the underside. Whitcomb. 3 of the 17 modules in this crate are mistagged. Serials beginning with 293 should be revision E. These are revision D. Recall Bulletin 528, January 11th, 2025. They were supposed to be pulled from inventory before disposition. Make a note. Whitcomb wrote it down. The handwriting was the handwriting of a man who had just decided his job for the rest of the morning was whatever this woman told him to write down. Serial number range. Revision code. Recall bulletin number. Date. He underlined the bulletin number twice and circled the date. At the registration desk, Linville had watched the whole exchange from 40 feet and had not finished her coffee. She was looking at the floor manifest. The qualifying buyer line was redacted. Classified buyer designator, a single line of black bar, but the program office routing code printed beneath the bar was not redacted. The code was alphanumeric and short and clean. Linville opened the directory application on her tablet and typed the code into the search field with 1 finger. The screen returned a single-line entry. Program Executive Officer, SOCOM Coded Equipment. Linville closed the tablet very quietly. She set it face down on the desk beside the floor manifest. She picked up her coffee. She did not drink it. A master sergeant had told her once, 15 years earlier, in basic ammunition supply school at Fort Lee, that the difference between a buyer and a vendor was which one of them was reading the lot numbers without being asked. Linville watched the woman at crate 22 read the lot numbers without being asked. She set her coffee back down on the desk. She did not look at Marston. At crate 22, the woman moved to the next module, a second module from the mistagged batch. She read its serial number plate. She did not lift it from the foam. She turned to Whitcomb. Note this one, too. Same lot. Same revision mismatch. The third one is at the bottom of the stack. We'll get it on the bid pass-through. Yes, ma'am. Marston had finished his briefing of the auctioneer's staff at the front of the room and had noticed, across 40 feet of inspection floor, that his aide was taking notes from the woman he had been told to remove. He crossed the floor at a fast walk. He arrived at crate 22 at the side opposite the woman, the way a man arrived at a property line he intended to defend. Captain, I said escort, not interview. Sir, could we step over to the desk for 1 minute? We're past 1-minute conversations, Captain. The floor opens at 1300. We have 95 minutes. Move. Whitcomb tried again. He angled his body. He lowered his voice the additional half step that a junior officer lowered his voice when he was asking for an exception. He got out the first 3 words. Sir, this woman. Marston interrupted him with a hand on the shoulder and a smile for the room. Captains, today, ladies and gentlemen, they want to interview every vendor who shows up early to a floor day. 3 staff laughed. Brett laughed. Linville did not laugh. The woman at crate 22 had gone back to her inspection. She had not heard the joke, or she had heard it perfectly and decided it was beneath response. Both readings were available. She lifted a 3rd module. She turned it under the light. She read its revision code. Marston walked Whitcomb 4 paces from the crate and pointed at a folding chair against the wall by the door. Park her. Watch her. If she touches another crate, take her credential. Whitcomb returned to the woman's elbow. He did not park her. He stood 2 paces behind her left shoulder, notebook open, pen out. The next thing she said was the serial number range on crate 23. He wrote it down. 8:47 in the morning, 47 minutes into the day. The buyer's table at the front of the room was still empty. Linville at the desk picked up her tablet. She unlocked the screen. She typed 2 more words into the directory search field and read the second entry. She placed the tablet face down on the desk again. She picked up her clipboard. In the right margin of the morning's inventory sheet, she wrote the time, 8:47, and beside it, in printed block letters, a single word. Buyer. By 10 in the morning, the floor had decided on its joke. Brett, 24, borrowed blazer, still calibrating which of his bosses he was supposed to imitate. Passed the desk on his way back from the head table and referred to the woman at the folding chair, audibly, as the vendor lady. Linville's head came up. She did not correct him. She wrote the comment, with timestamp, in the margin of her clipboard. She had begun her own document. The nickname traveled. By 10:01, it was at the rope line. By 10:08, it had reached the inspection aisle, where the woman at crate 26 heard it, without turning her head, and lifted the lid on the next crate. She had moved off the folding chair after 11 minutes. Marston had not noticed. At crate 26, she lifted the primary radio out of its foam, pressed a sequence of 3 buttons in a specific order, and read the firmware version off the small monochrome screen above the keypad. Whitcomb. The secondaries in this lot are running build ER614B. The primaries are R614A. Mixed builds in the same lot are a cross-update failure waiting for a deployment. The disposition certification doesn't reference the mismatch. Noted, ma'am. Marston was passing behind them, the 3rd pass of the morning, the kind of pass a man made when he had not yet decided whether his patrol counted as supervision, and he stopped without turning. Captain, what did I tell you about the interview? Sir, she's... Save it. Marston kept walking. Whitcomb finished his note. His hand had begun to shake very slightly. He was watching a brigadier general be told to save it. He underlined the firmware build numbers twice and wrote the cross-update phrase in full because he did not trust his own shorthand to survive the day. At crate 29, the last in the inspection circuit, the woman opened the lid and lifted the manifest envelope taped inside. She read through the certification pages. She stopped on page 4. There's no second article test cert on the bridging modules. Manufacturer didn't sign the page. This crate can't be sold to a federal buyer without it. I'll flag it for the auctioneer, ma'am. Don't. Let the bid pass. The lot won't clear conveyance. Whitcomb looked at her. He understood what she had just told him. She was going to let the auction proceed because the buyer who won the lot would discover the missing certification at closing, and the manufacturer's bankruptcy trustee would have to refund the bid. She was letting the process correct itself. She was not weaponizing the discovery against the procurement officer who had spent the morning calling her a vendor. Whitcomb wrote it down anyway. Marston returned for his fourth pass at 10:23. He had been told by Linville at the registration desk that the credential flag was under compliance review and that the floor had 40 minutes until bidding opened. He approached the woman directly for the first time since the cold open. His voice had changed. It was louder now, performance level for the staff. "Ma'am, your firm needs to wait in the lobby until bidding closes. If your firm sponsored you to inspect, they should have briefed you on floor procedure. We can't have unaccompanied vendors handling sealed inventory." "I'm not handling sealed inventory." "You've had your hands on a dozen units in the last 40 minutes. 3. And everyone was unsealed and tagged for inspection. Lobby. Now." The woman looked at him for 1 second. The look did not contain contempt. It contained the slight, almost professional patience of a person waiting for a slow argument to finish constructing itself. She closed the lid on crate 29. She straightened the cuff of her blazer. She walked toward the lobby. Whitcomb walked behind her, notebook in his right hand. The lobby was the part of the Aravex building the auction had not refurnished. 2 leather couches against a glass wall. A reception desk no one was sitting at. The smell of empty office. She sat on the couch by the front window, with her back to the parking lot. She did not take out her phone. She did not check her watch. She looked at the row of dead potted plants the manufacturer had left behind when the bankruptcy trustee took the keys. Whitcomb stood 6 feet away by the door. "Ma'am, may I? When he asks for your read in the after-action, tell him the truth. That's all." "Yes, ma'am." He went silent. He understood he had been given his orders for the day. He stood by the door and watched Marston's back across the floor and wrote the next thing in his notebook, which was the time, 11:06, and the location, lobby, and the words, subject moved, voluntary underlined twice. On the inspection floor, Marston was leaning over the rope line with one of his staff. They were laughing about something. Linville, at the registration desk, had begun to write a second column in the margin of her clipboard. The first attendees of the bidding crowd were arriving through the lobby door, small handfuls, polite in civilian business dress, eyeing the empty inspection floor with the polite confusion of people who had expected more activity. If watching a competent officer be lectured by a man who has not earned the right to lecture anyone makes your jaw tighten, the subscribe button is below, and the floor is still talking. Marston drafted the memo over lunch. He sat at the head table at 12:15 with the auctioneer's compliance officer, Helen, 63, 31 years in federal contracting, half glasses on a beaded chain, and walked her through what he had written on the back of a printed lot sheet. Unauthorized handling of sealed inventory, refusal to depart the inspection floor when directed, unverified sponsor credential, recommendation, strike from buyer list, pending verification. Helen read it twice. She had seen this exact memo 11 times in her career, every one of them written by a man who learned. Later, he had written it about the wrong person. She said nothing about that. "I'll need the sponsor's chain of command before I can act, Major. Sponsors a routing code. I'll get you a phone number by 12:45. Routing codes don't take phone calls, Major. They take written requests. Then I'll write one." He wrote the request on a second printed lot sheet and sent it from his issued tablet to a generic acquisition office inbox. He did not know that the inbox routed to a deputy 2 layers under Margot. The deputy read it at 12:23. The deputy smiled thinly. The deputy forwarded it to no one. The verification request would go unacted on for the rest of the afternoon. In the lobby at 12:20, the woman in the charcoal blazer took her phone from her inside pocket. She stepped out through the front door. She walked 20 paces across the parking lot, away from the building, and dialed. The call lasted 48 seconds. She spoke to Colonel Inez Maelstrom, her deputy, in the program office in Crystal City. She read Maelstrom 3 lot numbers, 2 firmware versions, and the missing test certification reference. She told Maelstrom to file the inspection findings to the program office before close of business. She told Maelstrom to expect a return call from her at 14:30. She did not mention Marston by name. She did not mention the morning by adjective. She ended the call. She returned to the lobby couch. Whitcomb had not moved from the door. Whitcomb found Marston in the staging hallway behind the head table at 12:28. He waited until they were alone. He had been writing in his notebook for 3 hours. The notebook was full of lot numbers and firmware builds and bulletin references and one capital letter word that he had not been able to bring himself to say aloud yet. "Sir, I have to tell you something." "Go." "The woman at crate 17, I know her, sir. I served under her. She's not a vendor." "Captain, every aide I've ever had has tried to tell me something at the wrong time. This is the wrong time." "Sir, we're 45 minutes from Gavel. Help to or get out of the way." Whitcomb closed his notebook. He did not say, "Yes, sir." He did not say anything. He stood at the door of the staging hallway and watched Marston walk back to the head table with the new memo folded in his uniform jacket pocket. He had tried twice. He would try once more, and that time would be different. At the registration desk at 12:35, Linville pulled the woman's credential file and read it again. The qualifying buyer line on the manifest was still redacted. The routing code printed beneath the bar still resolved to the program executive officer's directory entry. Linville printed the page. She folded it once. She walked it to Helen at the head table. She laid it flat on the table between Helen's coffee and Helen's reading glasses. "Ma'am, before you process the major's strike, you should read this." Helen read the page. She read it twice. She looked at Linville for one long second. "Thank you, Sergeant." Linville returned to the registration desk. She did not look at Marston. Helen folded the strike memo in half and slid it under her notebook. She did not tell Marston she was not acting on it. She was letting the morning finish its own argument, the way she had let 11 prior mornings finish theirs in 31 years. At 12:50, the woman in the charcoal blazer returned to the floor. She walked back in through the lobby door at the same pace she had walked out. She returned to crate 17. She lifted the same comms chassis she had lifted at 8:31. She turned it under the overhead light. She read the weld lot number aloud once more. "Weld lot 4711. She said it the way a person said a name they had not forgotten. Whitcomb fell in 2 feet behind her left shoulder. He had crossed the floor with her. The notebook was open again in his right hand. Marston, across the floor, saw her and stopped mid-sentence with one of his staff. His face moved through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. "She's back. Of course she's back. Linville, I sent you a strike memo at 12:15. Compliance is reviewing, sir." "Compliance is reviewing what exactly?" "Compliance, sir." Marston, who had been confident for 4 hours, heard in Linville's voice a register that had not existed at 8:31. He did not know what it meant. He walked toward Helen at the head table. He had decided he was going to push the strike through personally. Whitcomb intercepted Marston 10 feet from the head table. He stepped in front of his boss with the notebook open in his left hand and a finger marking a page in his right. He did not lower his voice this time. He did not whisper. He read, "Sir, I am not going to ask you again. Step back here for 1 minute. I am reading from a page I should have read to you at 8:31. Whitcomb, 1 minute, sir," he read. He did not say her name. He read 3 things from his notebook. The weld lot number she had identified at 8:31. The encryption module recall bulletin number she had identified at 8:43. The firmware mismatch she had identified at 10:09. And he read the dates of the corresponding program office bulletins, all of which were signed by the same authority. He did not say the name on the signature line. He looked at Marston and waited for Marston to do the math. "What are you telling me, Captain? I'm telling you to look at the signature line. Whose signature? The one I am asking you to walk over to that table and ask Helen about. Not me. Her. Marston did not walk to the table. He laughed once. Short, the kind of laugh that was meant to put air back into a room, and clapped Whitcomb on the shoulder with his right hand, the way a man clapped a friend who had taken a joke too seriously. Get me through the next 8 minutes, Captain. We'll have this conversation at 1400 over a sandwich. I appreciate the diligence. Whitcomb closed the notebook. He did not say, "Yes, sir." He did not say anything. He stood aside. At the head table at 1301, the gavel was 1 minute late because Helen was reading. She had stacked 4 documents in order: the qualifying buyer manifest, the directory entry for the routing code, the federal acquisition certification on file for the redacted buyer, and Marston's strike memo, and was reading them in order. Linville stood across from her at parade rest. They were not pretending to be casual. The lobby was filling with the bid day crowd. 2 auctioneer staff were setting microphones. Marston was at the rope line gesturing for the woman in the charcoal blazer to be moved off the floor. "Sergeant, what's your read?" "Ma'am, the credential is valid. The flag was procedural. The strike isn't going to process." "Why not, in your words?" "Because the routing code on the credential is the Program Executive Officer line, ma'am, which means the unaccompanied woman at crate 17 is the qualifying buyer." Helen did not blink. She closed the 4 documents into a single folder. She slid the folder under her notebook. "Do not tell the Major yet, Sergeant. Let the room come to it." "Ma'am." At crate 17, the woman in the charcoal blazer had been moved by Marston to a folding chair 15 feet from the rope line. She was seated. Her hands were folded in her lap. Whitcomb stood 2 paces behind her left shoulder, notebook closed, eyes on the floor. The auctioneer took the microphone and called the first lot, the modules lot, the one she had told Marston went second. She did not bid on it. She did not need to. She turned her wrist and read her watch, 13:04, and read it the way a person read a countdown. Linville, at the registration desk, saw the read. Linville understood what the read was. She had seen senior officers read time that way in 3 exercises and 1 real operation. The read was not nerves. The read was structural. At the rope line, Marston watched the woman sit. He was satisfied. The vendor lady was in the chair. The floor was moving. The auctioneer was calling. He had won. He turned to Brett, borrowed blazer 24, and said audibly, "That's how you run a floor, Brett. Firm, polite. Don't let them dictate the morning to you." Brett laughed. 2 other staff laughed. Whitcomb did not laugh. Linville did not laugh. Helen, at the head table, did not laugh. The laugh traveled 6 feet and died. The modules lot cleared at 13:07. The optics lot opened at 13:08 and cleared at 13:09. The crowd began to settle in. The auctioneer's pace was fast. The woman in the chair did not bid. She watched. She turned her wrist at 13:09 and read her watch again. Then, at 13:11. Then, at 13:14. Marston, at the rope line, did not see the reads. Whitcomb saw them. Whitcomb knew the read. At the registration desk, Linville closed her clipboard. She picked up her coffee, the same coffee she had not finished at 8:31, and drank half of it in 1 swallow. The coffee was room temperature. She did not care. If you've ever watched a man congratulate himself for winning an argument he was never in, stay with the channel. The whisper that ends this morning is 1 part away. The narrator pulls back from the floor for 1 part. The room continues without us. The 3rd lot calls at 13:12. The auctioneer's binder fills page by page. But we are no longer in it. We are in a small interior office 3 doors down a back corridor from the lobby, designated the hospitality room. 3 chairs, a coffee urn refilled twice, A whiteboard with 2 old marker rings, a government wall clock running 1 minute fast. The woman in the charcoal blazer sits in the middle chair, with her badge holder open on her knee. The badge faces her. The reverse, the side no auction floor will see, holds a folded photograph behind a clear plastic window. The photograph is sun-faded, edges soft from 13 years of handling. A staff sergeant in Army combat uniform, name tape reading Holst, taken in October 2013 at a forward operating base in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. He is 29 in the photograph, grinning the kind of grin a Special Forces operator grinned at a junior officer who had just delivered the latest comms package and made the mistake of asking if it worked. She had taken the photograph that day. He had asked her to. His daughter was 4.5, and he was running short on photographs the 4.5-year-old would recognize as her father. She printed it for him that night and kept the digital file. The photograph in the badge holder is that file, printed 8 years later at a 4x6 counter in Crystal City, the morning after she pinned on her star. October 6, 2013. Major Margot Caldera, age 37, commanding an ordnance company at Forward Operating Base Shukvani. Staff Sergeant Reuben Holst's 12-man Special Forces team operating out of the same base. A planned exfil from a forward observation post after a 40-hour overwatch in the mountains east of the FOB. The team carried the new generation of multi-band encrypted comms package, fielded 8 months earlier on a firmware revision Margot's office had certified for deployment. The package's secondary radios entered a state of partial failure during the exfil window. They handshook with the primary. They did not retransmit. The team's request for fast air cover was sent and received in fragments. The cover arrived 11 minutes late. Holst did not return to the wire. A junior weapons sergeant named Jonas did not return to the wire. The other 10 members of the team did. They returned in 2 vehicles, 3 of them wounded, one of them carrying Holst's combat pack in his lap because nobody on the team had been willing to let the pack ride alone. The investigation traced the failure to a firmware build that had passed every qualification gate. The gates had not included an antenna geometry test at the temperature range the mountains delivered in October. The build had been adequate for the temperature range it had been tested at, not for the one it had been deployed at. Margot read the post-incident report at her desk on a Tuesday morning. She signed the statement of responsibility. She was offered a quiet reassignment to a staff job in Tampa. She refused the reassignment. She filed for lateral transfer to the Acquisition Corps the next week. She has carried Holst's photograph in her badge holder since the day she took the oath into Functional Area 51. Now, 13 years later, alone in the hospitality room at 1316 on a Monday in early June, the Brigadier General thinks briefly about the morning on the floor. None of it has reached the part of her that the photograph still reaches. The reason she did not react to Marston at 8:31 is not patience. It is proportion. She knows what the cost of a careless procurement major actually looks like. Pierce Marston is not it. He is rude. He is wrong. He is not the cost. The cost was named Holst. She closes the badge holder. She turns her wrist and reads her watch. 13:28. She opens the phone in her right hand and dials Colonel Inez Maelstrom in Crystal City. The call lasts 90 seconds. She reads Maelstrom the lot numbers she will bid on at 1400. She reads Maelstrom the lot numbers she will not bid on, and the reasons. She tells Maelstrom that the procurement major running the floor, a Major Pierce Marston, will be folded into the weekly reporting on the SOF Comms refresh contract beginning Monday. She does not raise her voice. She does not characterize Marston with any adjective. She tells Maelstrom to draft the contract addendum and have it on her desk for signature at 0700 Monday. Maelstrom says one word. Yes, ma'am. Margot closes the badge holder once more. She looks at the photograph through the clear plastic window. She says one word, quietly, not for anyone. Reuben. She closes the holder. She stands. She returns to the floor. The lot order arrived at the comms package the way the woman in the charcoal blazer had told the room it would. Modules cleared at 1307. Optics cleared at 1309. The auctioneer called the third lot at 1312, and the fourth at 1320. By 1333, the bidding had reached the 17th lot of the day, which was a pallet of mounted optics from the manufacturer's prototype shelf, and the auctioneer had begun saying, "The SOF comms package is the next call after this one," as a courtesy to the bidders who had come for it. The woman in the charcoal blazer returned to the folding chair 15 feet from the rope line at 1333 and folded her hands in her lap. Whitcomb returned to 2 paces behind her left shoulder. The clock on the back wall read 1334. Marston stood at the rope line with Brett at his shoulder, watching the prototype optics pallet move toward gavel at fair value floor. At 1356, the optics prototype pallet cleared. At 1357, the auctioneer turned a page and announced the SOF comms package. Crates 17, 18, 22, 23, 26, 29, and 30. And Marston, who had been waiting for that page to turn, walked from the rope line to the head table without looking at the chair where the woman in the charcoal blazer was sitting. He leaned over Helen's right shoulder. He kept his voice low. The staff in the rope line could hear him. "Helen, pull her credential before the SOF comms lot. I'm not having a vendor representative bid against qualified buyers on sealed federal inventory." Helen did not look up from her notebook. "Major, I will not." "On what authority?" "On the authority of the manifest in front of me, which you have not read. Show me the manifest. Major, step back from the table." Marston straightened. He did not step back. He looked across the floor at the woman in the chair, who was still seated with her hands folded, and his face changed for 1 second, a flicker of doubt, before he decided he could not afford the doubt. He turned and walked toward the rope line, 10 paces. The way a man walked toward a line he had decided to step across in front of an audience. He reached the rope line at 1358. He addressed the woman in the charcoal blazer directly for the first time since the cold open. His voice was the voice of a man who had decided the floor was a stage. "Ma'am, your credential has been suspended pending sponsor verification. You will need to exit the building before the next lot is called. My aide will walk you out." The woman looked at him. She looked at Whitcomb behind her left shoulder. Whitcomb did not move. The woman stood. She straightened the front of her blazer with the index finger and thumb of her right hand. She did not look at Marston again. "I'd like to register my objection on the record. My credential is current. My sponsor is on file. My buyer designation is on the manifest in front of the auctioneer's compliance officer. Strike the bid I would have placed on the SOF comms lot, and note that the bid would have been at the ceiling, fair value plus 3%. Noted, ma'am. Out." She started walking toward the door. Whitcomb fell in behind her at the 4-foot distance of professional escort. He did not say anything. Linville, at the registration desk, lifted her clipboard from the desk and folded it once and tucked it under her arm and did not write. Helen, at the head table, closed her pen onto the table beside her notebook with a quiet click. Halfway to the door, 10 paces from the lobby, the woman in the charcoal blazer stopped. She turned. She looked at Marston across the floor. And for the first time since 8:31, she smiled. It was not a wide smile. It was the smile of a person watching the last domino fall. The smile was half a second long. Whitcomb saw it. Linville saw it. Helen saw it. Marston did not see it. He had turned to face his staff and was already saying the next thing to Brett, the next confident thing, and the staff who saw the smile did not laugh. Whitcomb closed his notebook. He turned. He started walking, not toward the woman by the door, toward Marston. He covered the 17 paces from the door to the rope line in 8 seconds, and he did not slow. He reached Marston just as Marston was turning back to the rope. He put his right hand on Marston's forearm and held it there for 1 second. He had never put a hand on a senior officer's arm in his career. He did it now. "Sir, step over here with me. Now." "Captain." "Now, sir." He pulled Marston 4 feet from the rope line, into the staging corner behind the head table, out of the staff's earshot but inside the auctioneer's compliance officers. Helen, at the head table, set down her pen. Linville, at the desk, set down her clipboard. The woman in the charcoal blazer, by the door, stopped walking and turned around. She did not return to the floor. She stood at the door with her hand on the lobby handle, waiting. Marston, off balance for the first time all day, looked at his aide. The floor went quiet in the way a room went quiet when 20 people simultaneously realized they didn't know what they were watching. The SOF comms lot was 2 minutes from being called. Whitcomb leaned toward Marston's ear. He did not whisper yet. He breathed once. He said it. "Sir, she's the buyer." 4 words, 3 syllables in the operative one. Marston did not react for 1 full second. Then his eyes moved, not to Whitcomb, not to the woman at the door, to Helen at the head table, who was looking back at him with the expression a chaplain wore at a notification call. Helen nodded once. "She's the Brigadier General Margot Caldera, Army Acquisition Corps, Program Executive Officer for the SOCOM Coded Equipment Portfolio. I served 18 months in her office. The qualifying buyer for the SOF comms lot is her, sir. I tried to tell you at 8:33, at 8:43, at 12:28, and at 12:58. I am telling you now." The cascade happened on Marston's face in the order the narrator had seen on other faces in other rooms, but in private this time. Confusion first. 1 second of it, the smile still in his cheeks and gone from his eyes. Disbelief second. 2 seconds, the smile draining from the cheeks, the way a tide drained from a sand flat. Recognition third. 3 seconds, his hand moving without instruction from his brain and placing itself flat on the head table for balance. Horror fourth. Barely a second, just the long pull-in of breath and the slow exhale a man did when he had just understood the size of the thing he had done. He could not speak for 2 seconds. He found the only words available to him. "How long?" 4 hours and 34 minutes, sir. "The strike memo." "Compliance didn't process it, sir. The sergeant at the desk caught it at 12:35. The compliance officer has had it under her notebook since 1:01. She read it. She read all of it, sir." Marston closed his eyes for 1 second. He opened them. He looked at the woman at the door. The woman at the door looked back at him. She did not move. She did not relieve him with a nod. She did not punish him with a stare. She waited. He straightened his uniform jacket. He gathered himself. He walked the 17 paces from the staging corner to the door where the woman in the charcoal blazer was standing. He did not look at his staff. They did not look at him. The auctioneer had not resumed. Helen, at the head table, had not moved. Linville, at the desk, was writing in her clipboard, the way a person wrote a sentence she would quote for the rest of her career. Marston stopped 3 feet from her. He could not speak for 2 seconds. He found the only words available to him. "Ma'am, I owe you the formal apology, and I will deliver it on the record. Right now, I owe you the only thing that matters in this room, which is the floor. The SOF comms lot is yours to call. Please accept the buyer's table." He extended his right arm, not toward the door, toward the head table. The woman in the charcoal blazer looked at the arm. She looked at his face. She did not smile this time. She did not need to. "Major, walk me to the table." "Yes, ma'am." He walked half a pace behind her right shoulder, the 17 paces from the door to the buyer's table at the head of the room. The staff at the rope line did not laugh now. Brett, the borrowed blazer, had gone very still and would not stop being still until the auction was over. Whitcomb walked 2 paces behind them with the notebook closed in his left hand. Helen rose at the head table and pulled out the buyer's chair. The woman in the charcoal blazer sat. The auctioneer, who had been waiting silently at the microphone, looked down at Helen for a cue. Helen nodded. The auctioneer raised the gavel. "We resume on lot 19, the Special Operations Communications Package. Crates 17, 18, 22, 23, 26, 29, and 30. Opening bid, fair value floor." The woman in the charcoal blazer raised a single finger. She bid at the ceiling, fair value plus 3%, exactly as she had told Marston she would when she had registered her objection at 1358. No one bid against her. The room was very quiet. The auctioneer counted at the cadence the room expected. Once at fair value plus 3, twice at fair value plus 3. The half-second pause that auctioneers held to let a counterbid surface. And no counterbid surfaced. The gavel fell. "Sold to the qualifying federal buyer." She signed the federal acquisition paperwork in front of Helen, with a pen Helen offered her. The signature line, no longer redacted on the in-house copy of the manifest, read, "Caldera, Margot R., BG, USA, PEO." The pen returned to Helen's hand. The woman who had been called a vendor at 8:31 stood. She turned to Marston, who was standing 2 paces behind her left shoulder, in the position he had been ordered into, in front of his own staff. She reached into the inside pocket of her blazer and removed a single manila envelope, sealed, the corner stamped with a program office seal in dark blue. She held it out with 2 fingers. Marston accepted it with 2 hands. No arrest, no court-martial, no IG investigation. The reckoning in this story was the manila envelope and the 18 months that came with it. Marston returned to the head table. He sat in the chair Whitcomb had pulled out for him. He opened the envelope at 14:12. The cover memorandum was 1 page. It was dated for the previous Friday, 3 full days before the auction, signed by Brigadier General Margot R. Caldera, and it routed Major Pierce Marston, U.S. Army Acquisition Corps, into the weekly procurement reporting cycle for the SOF Comms refresh contract for a period of 18 months, beginning the upcoming Monday at 0700. He read it 3 times. On the 3rd reading, he understood. The envelope had been prepared before the auction. He had been the planned procurement support officer for the contract from the beginning. Margot had known his name and his branch and his career before she walked through the door at 8:31. She had not arrived to find a vendor. She had arrived to find him. He folded the memorandum back into the envelope. He set the envelope on the head table beside Helen's notebook. He did not write anything for a long time. Across the floor at the buyer's table, Margot was already standing. She turned to Whitcomb behind her left shoulder. She was the Brigadier General again. She had been since the auctioneer's gavel. But her voice when she spoke to Whitcomb was the voice of someone speaking to a captain who had just done his job at considerable cost. "Captain Whitcomb, 3 months from now, there will be an opening in my office for a deputy aide-de-camp. Functional area is yours to choose. The opening is yours if you want it." "Yes, ma'am." "Sleep on it first." "I have, ma'am." Margot did not smile. She nodded once. Whitcomb stepped back. Linville, at the registration desk, had written a final line in the margin of her clipboard at 14:14, and the line was the one she would read aloud to her own master sergeant the following morning over coffee at the depot in North Carolina. Captain stood. She noticed. The remaining lots were called. the room filled with the polite murmur of a recovery from a moment everyone in it had felt, and no one would name out loud. Helen, at the head table, closed the binder of the day. Marston sat beside her, the open manila envelope in his hands, and wrote nothing. The auctioneer thanked the room. The room filed out. Linville closed the registration desk and walked to the lobby with the clipboard tucked under her arm. Whitcomb stood at the door of the hospitality room until Margot was ready to leave. Margot was ready to leave at 14:43. If a quiet outranking lands harder for you than an arrest ever could, that's the channel. Subscribe to Honor Tales, because the next story will not arrive with sirens either. It will arrive the way this one did, on the merits. In the parking lot at 1446, Margot walked to her car. The car was a dark sedan, government-plated, parked at the far end of the lot in the spot reserved for the auctioneer's compliance officer. Helen had moved her own car at 12:50 to make room for it, without saying so to anyone. Margot stopped at the driver's door. She took her phone from her inside pocket. She called Colonel Inez Maelstrom in Crystal City. Inez, the SOF comms lot cleared at fair value plus 3%. 3 crates need recall flags before they enter inventory. Modules from lot 293, mixed firmware builds on the secondaries, missing test cert on the bridging modules. The procurement major's name is Marston. He's on the Monday brief at 0700. Draft me a clean welcome agenda. 20 minutes, 2 questions, no surprises. Yes, ma'am. How was the morning? It was a morning. Yes, ma'am. She ended the call. She stood at the driver's door for one more second. She opened her badge holder one last time. She looked at the folded photograph through the clear plastic window. She did not say his name out loud this time. She closed the holder. She set it on the passenger seat. She got in the car. She closed the door. The thin platinum band on her right ring finger, the one no character on the floor had noticed all day, caught a bead of sun through the windshield and went dark again as she turned the key. She drove east, toward the river, toward the office in Crystal City, where Maelstrom was already on the phone with the contract office. The Aravex Defense Technologies sign grew smaller in the rearview mirror until it was a rectangle, and then a glint, and then gone. No foreign theater, no coded greeting, no presumed KIA call sign. The country went on. The procurement got done. The names got carried. Behind her, on the empty inspection floor, Whitcomb closed the last open crate lid with both hands and turned out the overhead lights. Marston was still at the head table with the envelope. The afternoon did what afternoons did. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Honor Tales for more.